Hi, and welcome to the Unit 6 Day 5. This video is for the calculation section of your lab. All right. So far in the lab, you should have done the pre-lab, and you should have also completed the data using the video. Now, what I have here is some data that I've made up, so you're not going to use this data. So I'm going to say this probably 3 or 4 times, and still someone may still wind up doing this. This data that you see here, do not use it. Do not use this data, okay? You're going to use the data from the video, the data videos that you watched, okay? Fill it in as it's done in the video. So do not use this data. Do not use this data. Should you use this data? No, do not use this data. All right. So now that we've gotten that clear, hopefully, now what we're going to do is talk about how do we use this data to get this value. Remember, the importance of getting the percent composition of your anhydrous salt is so that you can go back to the pre-lab table, compare it to the percent composition of the anhydrous salts in the pre-lab table to help you identify your unknown. You want to make sure that those numbers match. And if you find a number that matches one of these values, then you scroll over and it tells you what your unknown is. Okay, so how do we do these calculations? They're real easy. The first calculation is the mass of the unknown hydrate. So when we say unknown hydrate, that would be the salt with the waters attached to it. Hydrate means you have some waters on there. And to get the mass of the unknown hydrate, all you do is you subtract the mass of the empty evaporating dish from the mass of the evaporating dish in the unknown hydrate. So for me, so that would be the first and the second. So for my values, I would do 18.45 grams minus 15.50 grams, okay? And then, of course, you would just plug that into your calculator to go ahead and get your mass, right? And that gives me 2.95 grams. Notice I have units here. Make sure you have units, okay? I got my units in. Okay, cool. So I've got my mass of my unknown hydrate. Now I need the mass of the anhydrous salt. And for that, we are going to do this. This is pretty much the same math, but we need to choose which one of these three that we're going to use. Now remember, the reason why we have 3 different measurements here is because we kept heating it until we made sure that we got rid of all the waters. We knew that we got rid of all the waters because the numbers didn't change much. And so these previous values, I don't need them. That was just when I was making sure that I removed all the waters. I know I've removed all the waters here. So I'm going to use for the last one. For me, it's the third trial. I think for most of you it will be the third trial as well, that third mass. I'm going to use that as the mass of the evaporating dish and my anhydrous salt. So that has my anhydrous salt and the evaporating dish. And from that, I'm going to subtract the mass of the empty evaporating dish because I don't want that part in my mass, right? Okay, so then I go ahead and I do my math here, 17.50 minus 15.50, and that gives me 2.00 grams, okay? All right, so now the last part is we're going to use these two numbers to get the percent composition of anhydrous. So if you saw the pre-lab video, if you needed to watch that, you saw that when we say percent, all percents are a part over a whole times 100. In the case of a hydrate, it has 2 parts, the anhydrous salt and the water, and the whole would be the entire molecule or compound. So if we're trying to calculate the percent composition of the anhydrous salt, it's going to be the mass of our anhydrous salt. So this value here, right, the 2 grams, divided by the mass of the hydrate, so the whole thing, the 2.95 grams times 100, okay? So that's how we get those values. All right, so let's go ahead and plug that in. So this is going to equal to the mass of my anhydrous salt, so 2.00 grams, minus the mass of my hydrate, my whole, right, 2.95 grams, times 100, and I get 67 doing 2 sig figs here, so 67.80%. I'm just rounding it off to 2 sig figs. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the value I get when I do that math. Okay, so now that I have this value, what I need to do is I need to go back to my table and see if I can find that value in my table. Okay, so I would match it to something that's in my table. Now, the thing is, my table is not complete, and it won't be complete because you guys have to do that. But I can tell it's not any of these three because none of those match that number. 62.77 is pretty far. So most likely it's probably the one that's in between, but I'm not sure yet until I get all these things calculated, right? But anyway, I would take this number and I would match it to the percent in the table. Now let's say, for example, this number came out to be 62.80. This was 62.80. Well, I'm like, oh, that looks close to it, 62.80. And then I would scroll over and I would say, oh, this is my salt, because these numbers have to match, okay? These numbers have to match, and that's how you identify your unknown. Once you have your unknown identified, then you're going to go and work on the questions.